Hello. Hello, students. Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Good afternoon, students. We will wait for 1 minute and we will immediately start the session. Fine. This. Who is there? Yash is there. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Vaishnavi, Harshal. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't want to waste time because in a 220 to 30 minutes I'm giving you basics about the learning vector quantization and the radial basis function. So we will immediately start. Let the student join. Let me take only 1 minute. My sincere request is you mute yourself, dear students. When I want to ask the questions, I will definitely unmute you all. So, how is study going on, students? Hello?
Very nice.
Okay. So I hope till now the madam has covered this CNN thing. Then you have learned back propagation, right? Another thing is whenever you are doing
Yes.
study, please only don't concentrate on theory. You need to solve problems as well. Okay. And whenever in classes also we have discussed, the teachers are discussing that, and numericals which we have given, please you just go through it, and please dear students make a practice of all. Okay, so that it will be easy for you people. uh, Whenever you are seeing a end paper, then you won't have your complaint is you won't have enough time because you don't practice to solve the example, and that would be the really a big hurdle for you people to cope up with the paper during the this duration of 3 hours. Okay, so if you have some kind of a problem solving skills, then definitely you can speed up the things. Okay, so students, let's start with the remaining part of the unit 5. There are requests from the students. I'm going to unmute you all, please. If you have any doubt, later I will give you 5 to 10 minutes time in that you can discuss. So let us start with the theme that whichever the theme you have up till now studied, it is classified in the category of supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Okay. Now, whenever we are dealing with the SOFM, I hope you have learned the SOFM which I have taken in the last lecture. So SOFM is a part of unsupervised learning, right? And now whichever the other part which we are seeing is a LVQ, that is nothing but the learning vector quantization, is a part of a supervised learning algorithm. Okay, so I'm not going to differentiate this because in a last lecture I have already seen. So I'm quickly sharing the screen of my ppts to you, so that we will quickly go through the linear learning vector quantization and this. Is it visible, students?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So learning vector quantization. So please pay attention for 20 minutes minimum so that you can at least understand the basic idea about LVQ and the RBF. So I'm going a little fast because LVQ is parallel with the SOFM. If you remember, SOFM is also based on a competitive learning on a similar line, and please whichever things I'm telling you, note down if possible so that it will be easy for you people to revise the thing. So as I have told in my SOFM lecture, this is based on a competitive learning. On a similar line, LVQ also based on a competitive learning, where we are going to find out the winner. Winner means which we are going to calculate the Euclidean
Winner,
distance,
chicken
right?
dinner.
And whoever is the minimum distance which we are getting, we are considering that particular group as a winner group. Okay. So, yes, any doubt? Who had raised the question? Hello? Students, I will give you time. After my explanation, you can raise the hands. Let me complete first. Okay. So, we are going to calculate always the distances, right? So, the distance from what? Whichever the input vectors we are having and whichever the weight we are assigning, we are going to calculate the distance, right? And we are going to consider whichever the distance is minimum, we are going to assign that as a one cluster, fine. So as I have told, linear vector quantization is based on a self-organization, similar line of a self-organization map. Only the difference is it is a supervised learning. And the main application of LVQ, the main application of SOM, the main application of clustering, all is coming for this, your classification only, fine. So whenever we are dealing with the LVQ, I'm not going in a detail, I will just give you this slides so that you can go through it. As the name is a vector quantization, whichever the modified weights are there, okay, after solving the or after calculating the distance and after modifying, if whichever the clusters we are targeting, okay, which is not equal to the assigned one, and which then we are applying the weight updation formula. So whatever the final weights we are getting, it is called as a code book vector, and everybody knows that code book vector is a basic terminology in a vector quantization. You might have learned in this ITCS also what is the meaning of a vector quantization, fine. So ultimately in LVQ, whichever the final weight modification which we are getting, that is called as a code vector, okay, and our task is to get that weight vector, so that whichever the input vector we are giving, we are knowing the classes, okay, and whichever the weight vector input weight vectors we are giving, these are going to be classified into the final classes. That is our main task, okay. So as I have told, vector quantization is a base of LVQ. So we are getting such type of a Voronoi diagram, okay, which gives you the boundary line between the two classes. This is the final thing which we will opt. This is the general structure or architecture of the LVQ. Now if you see over here, these weight calculations which we have to do, so that we are knowing the final classes, so whichever the input patterns we are applying, we can map it to the final output classes, okay. So these are the parameters which are similar to the SOFM. So I'm not going in again detail with what is X, what is target value and everything. So everybody knows this. So we are going to update this weight vector, and this CJ is nothing but the class. Class associated means we are knowing that particular input has to be fall in which category or in a which class. So that is nothing but our the CJ. So now I'm directly going to the algorithm. So initially what we are going to do, suppose we are having the four input vectors given. So as per the class which we required, suppose we want to classify these four input vectors into the two classes, then we are going to assign out of these four as a two weight vectors, and remaining all we are going to use as a input vectors, okay. So number of clusters we are going to frame, we are knowing it because this is a supervised learning. So assign the initial weight. You have to apply the K-mean clustering method. We have to calculate the distance between this xi and the weights. This is the same step which we have done in the SOFM as well. Only when the value is a minimum, we are going to consider that as a winner one, and then we are going to update based on the suppose that we are going to have the cluster as a 1 and 2. Suppose the minimum is a 2, then we are going to modify the weight 2. Like this our procedure is, which we have already done in the SOFM also. So I'm not going to repeat it again, okay. So only here the difference is weight updation formula is changed over here. So what is this? Suppose your target class, whichever the target class is there, and whichever the class which you have got, if it is equal, then we are going to modify the weight. J means what? Whichever the closest or whichever the class you have, suppose 1 and 2 class you are having, and you have calculated the distance d1 and d2 based on the Euclidean distance, and you got that d2 is a minimum, okay. So here you are going to update the weight of W2, means weight vector 2 you are going to update based on this formula. Alpha is nothing but our learning weight. And if your target, whatever the target class is there, okay, this target class is not equal to the whatever the output you have assigned, then you are going to apply this formula. Only this is the difference between SOFM and the LVQ. Rest of the steps are the same. Okay, so if you see this example, as I have told, we are having, these are the input vectors. So out of this, we want to classify in the two class. So how many weight vectors should be there? Only two. So what we will do, out of this, we are going to keep these two as a weight vectors, and these we are going to use as a input vector. So students, from where you are going to find the distance? From the weight vector and the input vector, you are going to find out the distance. Okay. So as I have given the formula and we have done this in SOFM, so we will quickly go through this. So as I have told, the two classes are there. These are my inputs, okay? And these are the weights. Weights we are going to be considered as a 2. We have calculated the distance D1 and D2. And we got that the D2, since J is equals to 2, the D2 is the minimum. So what I am going to do? Wj means W2 I am going to be modified over here. So earlier 001 was there, which is my earlier weight vector. When I'm going to use this formula, my new weight vector, we will get it as like this. So this is called as a code vector, and like this we will calculate this code vector for my input vector. So let us say the input vector is now 0011. So what is this 0011? As I have told, this is a 0011 is my one input vector. Then I'm going to calculate it for 100. Then I'm going to calculate for 011, and the final weight which we are getting, that is called as a updated weight vector, and this is also called as a code book vector. Okay, so only difference in the your self organization map and the this learning vector quantization is, we are ultimately getting a modified weight vector, and we are going to only change how we are going to change the that formula, how we are going to modify the weight. So basically the first difference in this is a supervised learning, as we are knowing the actual labels of the classes, where in the our SOM we don't have the labels. So we are, this is that SOFM comes under the category of unsupervised learning. So the next part which we are going to deal with is radial basis function. I'm not going to read a summary for you. Another thing is, you will find in a literatures, LVQ1 is there, LVQ2 is there. So these are not in your syllabus. Only the meaning of a LVQ1 is this. Here we are only going to consider the distance of a winning vector, but there or the winning class, but here LVQ1, it is going to consider a runner-up as well. Okay, so you are going to calculate the distance for the runner-up class as well, and this is the only difference between normal LVQ and the LVQ1. But you don't have this in your syllabus, so only you should solve some problems on a similar line which we have solved, and you have to give a updated weight vector code book. That's it. This is related with the LVQ. The next important point is a radial basis function. So what do you mean by the radial basis function? Actually, the radial basis function is used to solve a problem whenever you are getting a particular data sets like this. We cannot solve it using a simple linearly separable line, or the problem which we have solved like a XOR problem, right, in a perceptron, where it is not linearly separable. So we required some kind of a methodology by which we can solve this non-separability problem, and RBF is have a solution for this. So now only thing is how the RBF is working. This is a different one, and I have taken this material from the different literature. So I'm explaining this based on the two literatures. Okay, I will give this literatures also in detail to you. So basic problem is, whenever we are giving any particular non-separable problem using RBF, we have to apply radial basis function. Another name for the radial basis function, literature tells that radial basis function kernels. Okay, so we are going to use it. So they are saying that when you are going to apply a Gaussian types of a radial basis function, okay, then input patterns you are going to frame it into another space. Okay, so normally you have not learned this type of a concept in your earlier examples. So whenever your architecture, when you are going to see about the RBF, it is a similar like your multi-layer perceptron. So you are having input node, you are having hidden node, and you are having output node. Please pay attention. Now here, as you have learned in the back propagation or in a multiple your multi-layer perceptron, everywhere the weight is attached over here, right? But in RBF, you don't have to consider weights which are connected from input layer to the hidden layer. We don't have a weights over here. Please note it down. We have a weights only over here from hidden layer to the output layer. Now, whenever we are dealing in a back propagation algorithm, what we have done, we have passed this information from input layer to hidden layer. Then we are going to find out what exactly the output is. If output is not matched as per you have decided, then you are calculating the error, and that error we have propagating back. So in a back propagation algorithm, what happens, information goes ahead, but whichever the error is there, it is going to be propagated back, and then you are going to modify the weights in all, from hidden to output and from this input to the hidden layer. Now whereas in RBF, we are not going to modify the we are not going to consider a weight functionality over here, but our main task is we are going to map these input vectors into the new dimensional space that is called as a M vectors, and we are going to give a terminology as a phi. Suppose this is a x1, x2, x3, these are the input vectors which are having a dimension p. Then these input vectors we are going to map to the new space or the new vectors who are having the dimension m, and which uses over here a Gaussian function. So basically these Gaussian functions are nothing but the radial basis function. Okay, so which the thing is that we are going to predict these clusters from the input vectors. So our task is what, we are having input vectors and we want to classify or we want to group it into the clusters. Okay, so the hidden layer will gives you the clusters. Then by using these clusters, further we are going to update the weights, and we are going to assign the final class to those particular inputs. So that is how our the journey goes. Okay, and eventually when I will go to the more slides, you will understand the concept. So only one thing you please remember over here, hidden layer has a radial basis function. We don't have weights which are connected from input layer to the hidden layer. That is the second thing. Third thing is we are going to modify the weights over here so that we will get the final output. And over here also, only out of this, when you are getting the output, suppose the two outputs or the four outputs are there, whichever the winning is there, that is only one. The rest of the outputs are 0 0. That you will also come to know later. Okay, so the next one is like this. So basically RBF uses a k nearest neighbor model. So again I'm going to tell you that RBF is using internally your k means as well as knn. Please note this, I'm again repeating. RBF uses internally, radial basis function uses internally k means as well as knn. Where and how, that I will tell shortly. Fine. So now another important thing is what exactly the RBF function. Now please remember the two terminology. One is whenever we are going to map a p dimensional x vector into the n dimensional space, then that n dimensional space has RBF and each RBF has a receptor. Please understand the word receptor. What exactly the meaning of the receptor is? Let us say the receptor is a T over here. Okay, then we are going to calculate the radial distance of whichever the new vector space is there. Suppose this is a phi 1. Suppose this is a phi 2, suppose this is a phi 3. We are going to calculate this radial distances. Okay, and so the name is a radial basis function. Now, as I have told, there are the different ways by which literature gives the radial basis function. So the radial basis functions can be like this. You can say a radial basis function can be a multi-quadratic. Please note it down. Radial function can be inverse multi-quadratic, but we are using a radial function as a Gaussian function. Okay, so what it tells, the whichever the value of the radial basis function is, this is maximum at the receptor. Okay, and this goes on reducing when you are going going away a radial distance away from this receptors. So because of this, we are using many of the literature suggests that you use a Gaussian function as a radial basis function, even though we are getting a multi-quadratics or inverse multi-quadratics radial basis function in the literature. Now I wanted to tell you another important point is, whenever we are seeing this networks, so as I told, the two literatures I have referred, in some book they have given a radial basis function terminology as H1, Hj, Hm. In some books they have given it as a phi 1, phi 2, phi 3. So we will stick to this terminology. So this diagram tells you that we are having input vectors x, which is having a dimension m, or dimension which are having a dimension p. So like x1 to xn input vectors are there. We are mapping it to the different space using a radial basis function which have a dimension as a m, and only one condition is there, that these feature vectors, or these clusters, another name for this is a cluster as well, this should be, this m is always greater than n. Why? Because it may happen that in this one cluster there is a one feature, these inputs are also called as a feature. This includes a one feature, or this may include all these n features. Okay, so this condition is very important, and here output, final output we are getting, which where we have to adjust these weights. If you see the first literature, they have also talking the same. If you see over here, as I stated earlier, weights are only in the weights are only assigned from hidden layer to output layer. Weights are not assigned from input layer to the hidden layer. Okay, so our first task is, always remember, our first task is, you have to find you have to give the training to the radial basis function, where you are going to calculate. The first one is a receptor. Please note down, I am again repeating, the first task of training the RBF is, you have to find out the receptor, that is nothing but the T. And second one, you have to find out the spread of this function. What is the meaning of a spread in a Gaussian function? That is nothing but the sigma. So these are the two very important things which you have to do. First step, you are giving a two trainings. The first training is for the hidden layer. In the hidden layer, you are calculating the receptor, and the second one is the spread of that particular function for every sorry, for every cluster. Sorry. So for every cluster we are doing it. Okay, even though you are not understanding right now, it's okay, but whatever I'm telling repeatedly, please you concentrate. And finally, when we are going to calculate the output, we are using this simple formula which we have used in a normal perceptron also. We are going to find out the simple algorithm where we are going to multiply this weight with the output of the hidden layer, and then we are going to use a activation function, thresholding, by which we are deciding the final output of the class. And this h is the radial function, or phi is a radial function in another terminology, which is a Gaussian terminology, which tells us minus x minus c square by r square. When we are using Gaussian, r is equivalent to sigma. Okay, or this x minus c is nothing but the distance of the input vectors from the receptors. Okay, so I have explained this too. I'm not going to deal with the right now this algorithm, because you won't understand the algorithm immediately. First we will again go in a detail, and then I will again come to this algorithm back. So again, we are we are going in detail with the each steps of the RBF. So now, as I have told, we have, please understand, we have the X input vectors which are having a dimension as a P, and we want to transpose it into the some different vector space which have a dimension M. Okay, so our terminology is we are using this hidden layer radial basis function we are representing is a phi x. Now please, if we are having x1, x2, x3 like these input vectors, then for each input vector we are having a radial basis function in the hidden layer, which are noted as phi 1x, phi 2x, phi 3x, and so on, and it gives us a real value. Now another concept over here is a radial basis function increases, please, I am repeating this, radial basis function increases the dimensionality of the input vector, and because of it increase the dimensionality of an input vector, your non-linearly separable problem can be a linearly separable problem. Please note it down. I am repeating my statement again. Our task is input vectors are mapping into a different space, okay, which is having a m dimension. Fine. So please, whoever is writing, please stop. Okay, Jay, please stop. So we are having phi x, these are the radial basis function. Whichever the input vectors are there, right, we are mapping it to the new dimension, and radial basis function increases the dimensionality, and because we are increasing the dimensionality, linearly non-separable problem can be a linearly separable problem, and that we are seeing by example as well. Okay, so I have told you about the radial basis function. I have told you that this t, every radial basis function has a t that is called as a receptor, and we are going to calculate the radial distance between from this t to the your input vectors, and so the name is a radial basis function, and we are using a Gaussian function over here instead of multi-quadratic or inverse multi-quadratic. Now this is the same diagram which I have showed earlier. Now, as I have told, your first task is a finding of the receptors, and the second task is the finding of the spread of the function, that is nothing but the sigma. This is a Gaussian function. So what is the formula? This r is nothing but the radial distance, r is nothing but x minus t, or here t minus x also you can write. So this is the one thing. Okay, so whenever we are having any n dimensional input vector, okay, which is having a p dimension of the input vector x1 to xn, our task is to map it to the n dimension, and the first training phase is you have to calculate the receptor values. So receptors are from 1 to n, because we are going for the m clusters, and we are going to calculate the spread of that particular radial basis function. Okay, so the next important point is, as I have told, we have to form the different kinds of a cluster. So how do you find out the receptors? Now the next point is, here we have to use a clustering, our clustering algorithm. So where if you are seeing that we are having these three groups, then we are having the three receptors over here, and we are going to calculate the spread of the particular radial basis function as the nearest by using KNN. So I am using the two concepts. One is a clustering algorithm and the second one is a KNN. So clustering algorithm, why do we require? To find out the T1. So what is the T1? T1 is nothing but the receptor. Now if you see over here, receptor is called as a centroid in terms of K-means algorithm. So our first task is to find out the centroid, okay, of this radial basis function. Then we are going to calculate the spread of it. So spread of it means, suppose I want to consider the nearest neighbor as a 2, okay, or the nearest neighbor as a 3. Then I'm going to use this formula. Ti minus Tk means this minus this, okay, we are going to calculate, and these are the number of neighborhood which we are considering. By this we are going to calculate the spread of the particular radial basis function. This complete our training number 1. Now as we move ahead, we are now having this type of a function we are using for all my radial basis function phi 1 to phi m using this formula. So our main radial basis function is this. So eventually we are getting, whenever we are seeing like this, we are getting a two-dimensional array of a radial basis function. Now the next training part is we want to update these weights. Which are these weights? These weights are nothing but the which are connected from output of a hidden layer to our final output. Okay. So we are going to consider over here our activation function. If our xi is belonging to this weight, then my output is a 1. Otherwise, that output is a 0. Like this, we are coming towards the final conclusion of our class. That is nothing but how the radial basis function finally gives output in terms of a different classes. So this is the second training phase which is required in the radial basis function. Now another, by using the radial basis function, so this completes the discussion about the radial basis function terminology. By using the radial basis function, we can solve the non-separable problem, and we can define that those problems are linearly separable. So I have taken over here the XOR problem. Everybody knows that XOR problem is a non-linearly separable problem. So our first task is to calculate this phi 1, phi 2, phi 3. What this is called as? These are the radial basis function. How it is called as? Using a Gaussian function. So what is the formula? E raised to minus x minus t1 by 2. So why this is a 2 over here? This is actually a sigma square. Now if you see, I'm considering the two neighbor over here as a 1 1, and because of this I'm going to consider the spread is a 1. Okay, and over here I'm going to use a sigma is equals to 2. So when I'm going to solve this problem for each input vector 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1, for each receptor you have to put the values over here 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1 of all the receptors. Now here how many receptors are here? 4. 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1. How many input vectors are there? 4. So for each receptor you have to consider all these 4 values, and you have to calculate phi 1 x, phi 2 x, phi 3 x. So I have calculated it over here for you. Later you can solve it. Okay, then we have to assume some weights. You have to calculate the second training as a weight updation. So this is the output of my hidden layer. We are going to multiply it by the weight, and we are getting this value. And by observing this, if we are applying the activation function, where we can claim that values less than 0 we will put in a one class, and value greater than 0 we will put in other class, then we are getting 0 1 1 0 value. And so we can claim that non-linearly separable problem is solved by using a radial basis function. Now what is the drawback? Only over here, as compared to multi-layer perceptron, we require more time to classify this into a classes, because the radial basis function comes into the picture, and we require more calculations over there. Another thing is, here hidden layer is a fixed one, but in a multi-layer perceptron hidden layers are not fixed one. We don't have that particular idea, right? But here we are knowing that hidden layer uses a radial basis function, so hidden layer is a fixed one, right? And again, we will have a benefit from the radial basis function is that the linearly non-separable problem can be a linearly separable problem, as we have solved the problem of XOR. Okay, so now I hope you have understood the whole radial basis function idea at least. So if you have any doubts, please you just ask me about the radial basis function. Yes, at least you have understood the basic crux about the radial basis function. Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. See, so basically, please, I am quickly revising this. I know that this is a really tough problem for you people to, or toughest topic to understand the radial basis function. But please, my dear student, at least you can understand this much, that radial basis function uses some kind of a Gaussian curves. That is the first thing. We require to map the input vectors. Okay, again I am repeating very quickly for you people. We want to just give this particular input vectors to another dimension, that is nothing but the m dimension, which I have told you, right? Now if you are here, these input vectors we are going to map to a different space, right? And we are going to transform into the different space using the Gaussian function. And so in this diagram, this Gaussian function is drawn over here. And very first task for you people is to find out the receptor value and to find out the spread of this Gaussian function. That is the first learning task. And second learning task is this weight calculation, by which we are going to map a final class of the output. Okay. And another important point is, when we are going to expand this particular input vectors to the m dimension, we are increasing the dimension of it, so that, again I am repeating, non-linearly separable problem is converted into the linearly separable problem. So I guess by this short, I have given a short notice for you people, and I have just given a brief idea regarding how exactly the radial basis function works. So yes, student, have you understood at least a crux of radial basis function?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So again, I'm sharing my writing notes to you, because it's really difficult for us also to prepare everything, because we are dealing with another sessions of third year, second year, whatever this. But we have tried our best to give little inputs to you people, so that whenever you are studying, it shouldn't be like this. The things are new for you people. Okay. And another
Ma'am,
thing
I have
is,
one question.
okay, who is speaking first? Tell me the name.
Ma'am, Kaushik Chandak.
Okay, Kaushik, you just go ahead.
Yes,
just
ma'am.
1 minute.
Why have you
Just 1 minute. Another important announcement. As per the student request, we have decided to take a session on which type of the oral questions are asked whenever the Viva is there. So my suggestion is, please you go through the each concepts of each particular algorithm, classify in a supervised, unsupervised, and at least try to find out what exactly the functionality of particular thing, which functions are used inside, whether it's a feed forward, whether it's a back propagation means what, and all these definition of particular important points, at least you should know. That is my concern. And if you revise the things, then we will definitely plan one session, and I will give you n number of questions on the different topics. Yes, go on.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, why have you considered the spread sigma as 1?
In that XOR problem, no?
Yeah.
See, we have considered that the neighborhoods are the 2. Okay. And if you see that diagram, then the 0, 1 and the 0, 1 is there, and the distance of this is a 1.
Ma'am, can you show the screen?
Okay, wait, I will show the screen. Yeah. So again, this problem they won't ask you to solve, but you should understand at least. Just give a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is not necessary, again I am telling, that you should consider always 2. Even by not considering 2 also, you can go ahead. Huh?
Yes.
So see, this P is equals to 2 because I am considering over here the 2 neighbors. Okay, so 2 sigma square, no? 2 sigma square, no? Denominator is.
Yes.
And the sigma is a 1, so this value is a 2.
No, why sigma is 1? That is my question. Why sigma is 1?
Why sigma is 1? Because I am going to consider this 2 neighborhood. KNN we have to apply, no?
Okay.
So in KNN, KNN means what? How many K nearest neighborhood? I have considered it 2. If you don't want, you consider only 1, like this. And what is the value? It's a 1, 1. Are you getting my point? So,
yes, ma'am.
So 1. So sigma, sorry. So 2